Attachment is fear, fear of loss, and it comes from internal abandonment.
Can you talk about success and failure as human beings? Because really the only thing I'm thinking now is to be happy.
And that's the most important thing, because you're the source of everything. You know, we can have all the success in the world, and it's great, but we have to have love. Love of self, to live without fear, to be in the moment, and to appreciate what we do. You know, often we're chasing the illusionary carrot. Why? Because we're avoiding ourselves. If you're successful, you can be happy within yourself. If you're successful, you're always evolving as a human. And if you do that internally, you see that externally as well. You know, it's two sides of the same coin. You have to have both, or you don't have anything, because it's illusionary. It's fragile. It doesn't last. This does. This lasts. And there's nothing wrong with having everything. You know, materialism is great. Everyone wants a comfortable life. Everyone wants to do what they want. But you have to have this as well. And you have to be free to be with you, not depending always on the outside, because that's why we suffer. And how do we get to that point? By healing ourselves, loving ourselves unconditionally, letting go of our abandonment. So we stop staying in situations because we don't think we deserve more. And we have to see that. You have to be happy to be with you. With you. Yeah? So it's good you have everything. And you did the list. Now you can do you. And it's great, because it's a perfect moment.
Can you talk about attachment?
Attachment is fear. Fear of loss. And it comes from internal abandonment. If you're not complete within yourself, you attach to the outside. Because there's so much fear of losing the love. And we learn that from a very early age, that this is the love. The approval, the parents, the society, everything. And we attach to that externally so we feel loved. When we love ourselves unconditionally, we allow the outside to be free. And it doesn't mean we don't love. We love more because we love unconditionally, without attachment. But also, we start to choose what serves in our lives. Because when we're attached, we compromise. We take crumbs instead of the whole loaf of bread. You know, and you've got to see these places where there's not unconditional love of self. And also see where you create these situations. Because to love people is to allow them to fly. You know, it's not about controlling and holding. And it's the same with children. You know, we don't want them to grow or leave, and then you need to trust. And that doesn't mean you don't love.
Y no significa que uno no va a amar,
But you allow
pero vas a
yourself to be free
permitir
and
que
them
seas
to be
libre
free,
y vas a permitir que los otros sean libres también,
to have their human
que tengan su
experience.
experiencia humana.
You can't stop it.
No se puede impedir eso.
It has to happen.
Tiene que suceder.
And you know, it's an interesting thing,
Y es algo
and I see
interesante.
this with
Yo
parents
veo
a
esto
lot.
con los padres muchísimo.
They attach so much to the
Se
children,
apegan tanto a los hijos,
but then they're resented
pero después están resentidos
because the children are not independent.
porque los hijos no son independientes.
You know, oh, he's still living with me.
Todavía está
I'm
viviendo
still giving
conmigo.
him everything.
Todavía le sigo
Blah, blah, blah,
dando
blah,
todo.
blah. It's you that's attached.
Pero tú eres la que está apegada.
It's you that's attached.
Tú estás apegada.
And he won't
Y
fly
él no va a volar
unless you give him
a
wings.
menos que le des alas.
Okay, so attachment
Así que
is fear.
es miedo.
And you can see it so clearly
Puede ver con claridad.
because if you think you're going to lose something,
Porque si uno piensa que puede llegar a perder algo,
there's an energy, no?
hay
It's
una
like,
energía ahí, ¿no?
it's a fear.
Hay un miedo.
And that fear's always there.
El miedo está siempre ahí.
And you have to heal that.
Y hay que sanar eso.
You have to heal internal abandonment.
El abandono interno.
And then you can be free
Y después vas a poder ser libre.
and everyone
Y todos los
else.
demás también.
I lived 30 years in a violent marriage, physically and psychologically. Why do we build from the violence?
You know, this is our human
Esta es
experience.
nuestra experiencia humana.
All humans create that.
Todos los seres humanos crean
All on different levels,
todos en diferentes niveles.
different experiences.
Diferentes
But that's our true human
Pero
experience.
esa es nuestra experiencia humana verdadera.
Vulnerable,
Ser vulnerables,
you know, we don't love ourselves.
amamos a nosotros.
And it comes from
Y
ignorance
eso viene desde la ignorancia.
because we don't know how we're meant
Que
to
en
be.
realidad no sabemos cómo se supone que somos o tenemos que
And we always have excuses
ser.
and
Cosas
reasons
y razones
to continue with the same situation
continuar con la misma situación.
because we're afraid to be by
Miedo
ourselves.
a estar solos.
And society puts so many
Y la
conditions
sociedad pone tantas cosas
of how we should be
cómo tenemos
and what we
que
should
ser,
do,
tendríamos que hacer.
and we suffer.
Sufrimos,
We suffer,
sufrimos,
but we adjust.
pero nos ajustamos.
And then at one
Y
point,
después en un momento determinado
we say it's enough.
decimos hasta aquí llegué.
Okay, that's enough. I'm not doing this anymore.
No voy a seguir así.
You know, humans love to suffer
A los humanos les encanta sufrir
because it's familiar.
porque es familiar.
They like the intensity.
Les encanta la intensidad.
But at some point,
Pero en algún momento
you go, no more.
no más.
And it's a perfect moment.
Y ese es el momento perfecto.
That's when we let go.
Justo ahí cuando podemos
That's when
soltar,
we start loving
empezar
ourselves.
a amarnos a nosotros.
That's when we start to
Y
heal.
empezamos a sanar.
And some people tolerate a lot
Y algunas personas son capaces de tolerar muchísimo
for many years.
durante muchísimos años.
But at some point,
Pero en algún momento
I'm going to change.
voy a cambiar.
And it happens quickly, no?
Sucede rápido eso.
The change is quick.
Cambio rápido.
The minute you see
En
it,
el momento que uno lo ve,
because it's like an addiction.
que en realidad es como una adicción.
You know, toxic
Las
relationships,
relaciones tóxicas
they're an
son
addiction
una adicción
because they make you suffer.
porque te hacen sufrir.
It's like that.
Es así.
And then we change.
Después cambiamos.
Then we become
Y después nos tornamos
divine within our human experience
divinas en nuestra experiencia humana.
because we have unconditional love.
Porque vamos a tener amor incondicional.
And the fear leaves.
Y el miedo se va.
Then we start to choose something different, no?
Entonces ahí empezamos a elegir algo diferente.
Can you explain difference in between unification and meditation?
We meditate
Meditamos
to find peace.
para poder encontrar paz.
No mind.
No mente.
We auto-hypnotize
Nos autohipnotizamos
and we go into a
y
place,
entramos en un lugar.
hopefully,
Esperamos entrar en un lugar
that's quiet.
que sea tranquilo.
Okay, when we're meditating.
Cuando estamos meditando.
This is not that.
Esto no es eso.
We're dropping bombs
Nosotros estamos como tirando bombas.
And we're removing everything internally
removiendo todo internamente
so we can cultivate
para poder cultivar
a permanent
una
experience,
experiencia permanente,
not just when we're
no
unifying,
solo mientras
but
unificamos,
when we're walking in
sino
the
cuando
world.
estamos caminando por ahí en el mundo,
We have permanent
poder
consciousness.
tener una experiencia de conciencia permanente.
So in order to get to that
Entonces,
point,
para poder llegar a ese punto,
we have to remove
tenemos que remover
all of the stress,
todos los
the
estrés,
traumas,
todos los traumas,
the things in our lives that stop us from experiencing
experimentar
permanent consciousness.
conciencia permanente.
Because the objective
Porque el objetivo
is that you're walking around in
es que
consciousness.
andes caminando por ahí en tu vida en conciencia.
And on some level,
En algún nivel
it has an aspect of like meditation,
aspecto de la meditación.
but it's not the goal.
Pero ese no es el objetivo.
The goal
El objetivo
is perpetual
es
consciousness.
conciencia perpetua.
You do it with your eyes
Y
open,
uno lo hace con ojos
you do it with
abiertos,
eyes
con los
closed,
ojos
you
cerrados.
connect to all of your
Uno se
emotions,
conecta con todas las
you
emociones
express
que tiene,
everything
uno
that's
expresa
happening.
absolutamente lo que le sucede.
So, and you're not looking for a place
No
of
vas a
no
estar
mind.
buscando un lugar de no mente.
You're working with the
Vas a
thoughts.
estar trabajando con los pensamientos.
We're not trying to push them
No
away.
estamos tratando de alejarlos.
Naturally,
Naturalmente
they become silent,
se van a tornar
but not by
silenciosos,
trying.
pero no tratando de que no estén.
Naturally,
Naturalmente
we connect more with our body.
vamos a conectar más con nuestro
Because
cuerpo.
as we become empty,
Porque a medida que nos vamos vaciando,
this vibration
esta vibración
makes us very present,
nos hace estar muy presentes.
like it's a work.
Es un trabajo.
And we're unifying
Estamos unificando
the heart
en el corazón
with the head.
con la cabeza.
But the difference
Pero la
is
diferencia es
this.
esta.
The heart's the
El
master,
corazón se transforma en el maestro
and it witnesses the
y va a
thoughts.
estar atestiguando los pensamientos.
The silence,
El silencio,
the love,
el amor,
the appreciation,
la
the
apreciación,
gratitude
la gratitud
is the master.
es el maestro.
And this,
Y esto,
the drama, the human experience, some wonderful things, some not so wonderful things,
no tan hermoso,
is something we elect.
es algo que vamos a elegir,
We choose.
que vamos a
This
elegir.
serves, that doesn't
Esto
serve.
sirve, esto no me sirve.
So it's a big processor
Es un
system.
gran proceso.
You know, we all did meditation.
Todos hemos paciente,
But I love this
pero amo esto.
because you don't have to be patient.
Porque con esto no hace falta ser paciente.
You just do it.
Which one will be the difference in between feeling and to remain in the victim?
You know, you have to move everything
Tienes que mover toda la carga que tengas
until you no longer feel like a victim.
hasta que ya no estés sintiendo esa víctima.
And you know, you could say,
Y puedes
oh,
decir,
I created all that.
"Sí, yo creé todo
But it's not
eso",
your
pero
experience
no es tu
that you
experiencia
created
al
it.
haber creado.
You feel like a complete victim.
Una víctima
And you have to feel that.
Tienes que sentir eso.
You know, we don't know why things happen.
Vemos porque las cosas
We don't know why we create
creamos
situations.
situaciones.
Sometimes it comes from our
A veces
childhood,
puede venir de nuestra infancia,
but we have to feel it,
pero tenemos que
let it go,
dejarlo ir
and not repeat it.
y no repetirlo.
And appreciate
Y apreciar
that now you know.
que ahora sabes.
What do I want in my life? What do I deserve? How do I deserve to live?
¿Cómo merezco vivir?
Where am I going to compromise all the time?
¿Dónde transijo todo el tiempo?
Because that's your responsibility.
Eso sí es tu responsabilidad.
Because the truth is, no one can do anything to you.
Hacerte nada.
Only you allow it.
Solo si tú lo permites.
But until you have
No
consciousness,
tengas conciencia.
you feel like a victim. Of course you feel like a victim. The whole world tells you you're a victim.
Te dice que sos una víctima.
But when you take responsibility,
Tomas responsabilidad.
you
Te
realize
das cuenta.
that I allowed that to happen.
Yo permití que eso suceda.
And we've always got excuses as to why,
Con el por qué.
but they're not real.
Pero no son reales.
It's fear.
Es solo miedo.
And you have to connect with that fear,
Conectar con ese
why
miedo.
you tolerate these
¿Por qué
things,
toleraste esto?
and you have to let it go
Y dejarlo ir.
so you don't repeat.
Para no repetirlo.
So everything you perceive as negative in your life
negativo en tu vida
is a gift.
es en realidad un regalo.
Sometimes the gift's
Y
horrible
a veces los regalos son
and people
horribles
die.
y las personas mueren.
Sometimes the gift shakes our world.
Sacuden nuestro mundo.
But if we're masterful creators,
Si somos creadores maestros,
we use that
lo vamos a utilizar
to evolve
para evolucionar
and to find
y
freedom.
encontrar la libertad.
Most people don't.
La mayor
If
parte
you're
de
here,
los
it's
humanos,
because you're
si estás
brave.
aquí es porque eres valiente.
Most people just keep walking
La
around
mayoría de las
complaining,
personas siguen caminando por ahí quejándose
blaming the
o
outside.
culpando afuera.
But if you decide
Pero
to
si decidiste
take
tomar
responsibility
responsabilidad
for your own
por tu
evolution,
propia evolución,
that makes you exceptional.
eso te transforma en excepcional.
And you have to remember that.
Tienes que recordar.
And because you're exceptional,
Y porque eres excepcional,
sometimes you're violent with
a
yourselves
veces eres violenta contigo.
because nothing's ever good enough.
Nada es suficientemente bueno.
And the first part of
Y
unconditional
la
love
primera parte del amor incondicional
is to stop doing that.
es el dejar de hacer eso,
Stop being violent
dejar
with
de ser
yourself.
violento con uno mismo.
And you'll stop seeing it
Y
externally.
vas a dejar de ver eso en lo externo,
Really?
de verdad.
No one's more violent with you than you.
Nadie es más violento contigo que tú misma,
This is sure.
eso seguro.
And when I will confront again to the people that hurt me in a way, in such a brutal way, in my soul, because it was not physical, but in my soul, I remain destroyed.
So,
Entonces,
you have to let all of this go.
tienes que poder dejar ir todo esto.
You know, I always say
Yo siempre digo,
that it has to be like the wind through your hair.
tiene que llegar a ser como si fuera el viento que sopla a través de tu pelo.
Because once you move
Porque
everything,
una vez que has movido
maybe
toda la carga de esas emociones,
some things affect you,
tal vez alguna cosa te afecte,
but most of it won't.
pero la mayor parte de eso no.
And then you start to put limits
Después vas a empezar naturalmente
because
a dejar ir,
you've allowed this to
porque
happen.
tú permitiste que todo eso sucediera
And maybe some
y tal
relationships
vez algunas relaciones
you don't need,
no necesitas,
they don't serve.
ya no sirven
And you've got to be clear.
y tienes que ser clara.
But firstly,
Pero primero,
you have to move
antes que
everything.
nada, tienes que mover la carga de todo eso,
Because when you change,
porque una vez que tú cambias,
your external
tu
changes.
mundo externo cambia.
You know, when people do the 6-month process,
Cuando las personas aquí hacen los retiros de 6 meses,
they always go home and
en
say,
ese
oh,
proceso, siempre cuando vuelven a
my
casa,
family
dicen,
changed.
mi familia cambió completamente.
But they don't
Pero en
change.
realidad la familia no cambió,
You change.
pero cambió cada
And
uno.
the manipulations
Entonces ya las
and the
manipulaciones
games,
y las jugarretas,
they don't have the
y esas
same
cosas
effect
ya no tienen efecto,
because they're triggers.
porque son disparadores nomás.
They're triggers you've had all your
Son
life.
disparadores que has tenido toda tu vida.
And they lose their
Y
power.
pierden todo su poder.
You'll see.
Ya vas a ver.
You
ya vas a ver.
unify, thinking the
Vas a unificar, vas
facets.
pensando las
Just be
facetas,
present.
estando presente.
If you feel something, move
Si
it.
sientes algo, mueves la carga de lo que
Use
sientes.
everything external to move
Utilizas todo lo que sucede en lo externo para mover todo lo que está interno.
so you can be free, yeah?
Para ser libre.
Come visit our webpage for books, movies, and our wonderful retreat centers. Isha's simple yet powerful system is transforming lives around the world.